shape we've ever been. It's no better time to pass the torch than now.
I may not be the coolest guy he'll ever meet, but I'm pretty damn chilled myself. So. But I'll take that, and Bruce will always be the coolest. So I'll go over to the chill category, and I'll try to start something there.
Our friend Sam Acho has joined us. So happy to have you here, Sam. This is our first time, I think, working together on this show. Let's talk about this whole thing. So obviously the Bucs, they have Brady back. He felt he still had more to do. The Rams, of course, are just off of a Super Bowl win. Jordan, I'm going to start with you. Where do the Bucs fit in the NFC race?
Well, I got to start with this, Christine, because it's weighed heavily on my mind. And it's the fact that Todd Bowles is getting an opportunity people in my skin color don't get. As a black man, I'm sitting there. I am rejoicing about the fact that Todd Bowles is setting up to step into a job. That's a good job. We don't get this as black people in sports. We step into a mess, and good luck. And if it doesn't work, you're probably out before your contract's even done unjustifiably. What we have here is Bruce Arians punctuating a legacy of diversity hires and putting diverse positions first in the utmost of importance. And now we've got a spot where Coach Bowles is stepping in and is expected to win because, Sam, he's in a position where he can. This is great to me. And look at your smile. I got the same smile, brother. I couldn't believe this. It's the first thing I said to Shay, my wife. I said, I can't believe a black man's in position to succeed out of the gates. It's fantastic. And yes, of course, the Bucs are in a great position in that NFC. They were close to the Rams. Obviously didn't get done in playoffs. Although I still think in San Francisco. I think the Niners are that team that is closest to the defending champions in the Rams right now, just because they were an interception away from it. So, Sam, I don't know how you feel about the Bucs, but in that position, I only think about Todd Bowles and how refreshing this is. But I still think the Niners are in position to really get up underneath those Rams.
Well, shout out to your first point. So I played under Bruce Arians in 2013. And 2019, my last year in the NFL. So a third of my career, I played under BA. And like Coach Bowles said, who was a DC for those 3 years, Coach Bowles is super chill, BA is cool. They're both similar in that way. So I love the point you made about that punctuation to a legacy of adding minority hires, specifically black coaches in the NFL. That's huge. And I love how even more than that, this is what transition actually looks like. Like most often, people leave good programs. Let's say you're a quarterback, right? Drew Brees, he leaves New Orleans, and now they don't know where they're going to go. Tom Brady left, and obviously the Patriots haven't made the playoffs in a couple years, but they're in a better position than they were before. So I love what Bruce Arians did from a coaching perspective, putting Todd Bowles in place as a coach. But when it comes to who's going to be the best team, or at least the biggest threat in the NFC this year, it's got to be the Rams for me. And the reason why is, number one, you have your quarterback in Matthew Stafford. You have Cooper Kupp. You added Allen Robinson, who, in my opinion, was one of the biggest free agency additions of this offseason cycle so far. Had a down year last year with the rookie quarterback, but the years before that, if you look at his stats, he was really, really good. Some would say even dominant, top-level receiver. Now you add Bobby Wagner, 6-time first-team All-Pro. We're not talking Pro Bowl. Pro Bowl is great, but also there's this fan vote, right? As you know, Pro Bowls, oftentimes it's the fan voting, so it could be a popularity contest. You talk about first-team All-Pro, those are the best football players. Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey. You have so many guys who are ready and willing to dominate. I get it. You lost Von Miller. I understand that. But for me, I still like the Rams as the best in the NFC.
That's fine. You could take the Rams. You could take the Niners. I'll ride with the Bucs. I will ride with Tom Brady because Tom Brady has won in, I think, 2014, 2016, 2018, 2020.
We know Tom Brady's good, all right? This is not,
so you guys want to
it's not a first take. We've heard this
I'm
before.
just telling you, like, you guys can ride with whoever you want, but I'll go with Tom Brady. And by the way, also, like, in terms of what the Rams have lost, they've lost Von Miller. We don't know if OBJ is going to be back. And yes, sure, they get an upgrade at that wide receiver position because you don't have Robert Woods as an insurance policy anymore because he's going to come back from injury. Instead, now you've got Allen Robinson there to go alongside Cooper Kupp. That's great. It's a 1-2 punch. And obviously, Matthew Stafford has got chemistry with Cooper Kupp. It's why they ended up winning the title. But you lose OBJ, who obviously took defenders away from Cooper Kupp there. You don't know if he's going to come back. I guess I shouldn't say you lose him because we don't know if he's going to re-sign there. And then you lose Von Miller, who also took players away from Aaron Donald. And so I can't just pencil in the Rams considering the turnover issues that we saw from Matthew Stafford during the regular season and actually in the postseason. And also there's been no consistency there in LA. Like, this isn't someone you could look to where there's constant consistency with Tom Brady, and you know that whatever he's given, whatever's around him, he's going to find a way to win. I can't say that for Matthew Stafford. I saw him ride a roller coaster when he was in Detroit.
But you can't do
Sure.
that. The guy
Why
won
can't
a
I do
Super
that?
because he won a Super Bowl.
And so what?
To me,
Shay.
above that, to me, Sam, really quick is it's hard. I mean, this didn't feel like a dynastic group with Los Angeles, did it? I mean, they went all in to provide what ended up being the ultimate outcome.
Of course.
They won a Super Bowl. Job well done. They did what they were supposed to. But in terms of, okay, now make all those same roster moves, make it work again. You talk about pieces that are leaving. We don't know about OBJ. We do know Von Miller's a Buffalo Bill. To me, it's about the fact that this is not set in place for them to be ushered in to the team to beat. I don't believe that either. I think you can easily say Tampa's one of those teams. I think you can easily say if Kyle Shanahan believes that it's worth moving on from Jimmy G, he must think that Trey Lance is fully capable. And there's a lot of star power on that roster. And again, that was a Niners team that was an interception away from playing my Cincinnati Bengals in the Super Bowl. So it is crazy to think that this is the Rams for the taking, Sam, because that's not how it works in the league.
I think you disagreed
I think
with
y'all
me.
must have this morning.
I ultimately did it.
I think before. Yeah, y'all must have had some kind of plan this morning before the show, before y'all came into work at home. All right, we're going to pick what probably won't be the best teams. Let's just say something so it sounds good. You're talking about the 49ers, Jordan. The 49ers who don't even know who their quarterback is going to be. The 49ers who have been saying, they've been trying to, not saying, but showing they want to get rid of Jimmy G. We don't know what we have in Trey Lance. Those 49ers, that's what you're talking about, which I don't understand how that would be the team to beat. Please explain it to me, maybe now, maybe later. I don't know.
George Kittle,
and then
Deebo
Shay,
Samuels, Bosa, Elijah Mitchell.
But who's your quarterback? Who's your quarterback, right?
Well, Jimmy G is still
we saw what happened with Jimmy G in the last time he was out, how they lost that game to the Rams. We saw how that game ended. So I get it. Like even the 49ers don't really believe that much in Jimmy G. That we've seen that. So we don't know that. So that's one. And then two, Shay, to your point about Tampa Bay, and I get what you're saying about the Rams losing Von Miller. That's a big deal, right? They've lost some corners. That's a big deal. But Tampa Bay, Ndamukong Suh hasn't signed back yet. Jason Pierre-Paul hasn't signed back yet. These are two of their defensive stars and studs who haven't signed back yet. To me, Tampa's two, right? I'm not saying that Tampa's 3 or 4. To me, Tampa would be 2. But it's impossible to discount the Super Bowl champions when a majority of their core not only is back, but they're better, right? Robert Woods got injured. Oh no, what do? Oh, we go and get Allen Robinson, who a lot of people would say is even better. 1,000-yard receiving yards, and not last year because of rookie quarterback, but the years before that. Okay, man, what do? We lost Von Miller. I get it. Bobby Wagner isn't going to go rush the quarterback, but that's, remember, all decade, Bobby Wagner is going to LA. And so for me, you can't discount what Matthew Stafford did. And the whole last point, you talked about the roller coaster in Detroit. Detroit is a roller coaster. The football team of Detroit is a roller coaster. So you can't put that on Matthew Stafford. He disproved all the doubters. Won a Super Bowl. So you can't say Matthew Stafford may or may not be elite. He's proven that he is a Super Bowl winning champion quarterback when the pieces are around him.
Yeah. And you're right on all that. We don't know what's going to happen with Ndamukong Suh or Jason Pierre-Paul, but I'll say this about the offensive efficiency of this Bucs team. They were second in red zone offense in the NFL, and they led the NFC, the entire NFC, in points per drive. Like, they know how to get it done when you have Tom Brady under center. You can bet against Tom Brady. I'm just not going to do it. And actually, to help your point out here with the Niners, because I rode that Niners train the majority of last season. And when Jimmy Garoppolo plays, this is not a new take. Obviously, they win. You have Trey Lance now, who hopefully is in his second year, who could be that insurance plan if Jimmy G does get hurt. But what does Jimmy G and the Niners do? Usually, not in the postseason, but in the regular season, they take care of the Rams. They've been the Rams' kryptonite.
That's the point.
And so if you're going to look at the Rams, you got to look at the Niners because Kyle Shanahan has figured out Sean McVay, usually.
And if Shanahan feels like he wants to move on from Jimmy G, why is that? Because he thinks Trey Lance is the antidote to the Rams.
Or they gave up 3 first-round picks for him. But yeah.
Okay, or they can get a lot of draft capital for him when the draft comes along and they decide to move him to only bolster that roster. Niners are in a great spot. And, oh, by the way, Kyle Shanahan's their head coach.
Acho, what do you got?
Oh, by the way, nobody cares what happens in the regular season. It's about what happens in the postseason. You could beat me in the regular season, and I'm going to beat you like I did. LA Rams, 49ers, win the Super Bowl in the Super Bowl. And so for me, regular season, great, you got my number. I don't care. I care about what happens when those playoffs come and when those championship games come and the Super Bowl comes and the LA Rams are the current Super Bowl champions.
Hey, look, Sam, keep my wife's name. Keep my wife's name.
We are not doing that.
That's
No,
not-
we are not.
All right, that's not what we're doing.
It was
I
great
love
seeing you,
Sam.
Acho. It was great seeing you. Coming up on First Take, LeBron and AD could be back in the lineup for the Lakers. The question is, should they be? We've got some disagreement on that one. And I can't believe where this went. And Giannis willed the Bucs to victory over the Nets last night, but
And doesn't matter what he does.
While I'm doing this, I am playing tug of war with this guy with a sock. Brody is a 1.5-year golden retriever, and he is a little bit nuts.
He calls him Brody, so
It's
we don't
not
make
Brady.
fun of him. But his name is actually, the dog's name is Brady. Don't lie.
Jay Will, what you did at Duke, you were.
He made a little noise.
No, he made a lot of noise.
He made a little noise.
I wasn't doing windmills and,
He made a lot of
like
noise.
BC and dunking over
That's-
people.
Yeah.
You know, like you were
Yeah, he
dunking on a
made a-
5-foot rim, but I was all
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So many good times. All right, in what could possibly be a first-round matchup in the NBA playoffs, the Bucs took down the Nets last night, 120-119. Giannis had his second consecutive 40-point game, and a clutch three to take the game to OT made him Milwaukee's all-time scoring leader, while KD led all Nets with 26, 11, and 7. So the matchup previewed a potential first-round meeting with the Bucs sitting a half game back of first in the Eastern Conference, while the Nets are in 8th. According to Caesars, the two teams are currently co-favorites to win the East. So that leads us into this question. Chiney Ogumbuke back with us at the desk. And Chiney, I'll ask you first. Out of these two teams, who is the bigger threat in the postseason?
The biggest threat in the postseason right now is emerging to be the Milwaukee Bucks. And it's because they just know who they are. They're playing a great brand of basketball. And I know a lot of people are wondering, like, what do you mean by Giannis not necessarily being the best player? And best player, meaning when we talk about best player, we tend to say you have to have everything in your bag, right? You have to be able to knock down the three, hit the mid-range, have, a finish game at the rim. He may not necessarily be the most complete, but he is getting there. He is the most dominant player in the NBA right now, based on how he plays and how he performs. Obviously, he's one of the best players in the NBA, but he's emerging to be, he's right now the most dominant. He's emerging to be one of the best. And what I'll say about the Milwaukee Bucks overall, I mean, they're just solid on both ends of the floor defensively. They know exactly who they are, where to go, how to funnel, their defenders on the perimeter to the shot blockers. Offensively, they just know who they are as well. I mean, Giannis, he's read the game so well. He pushes on the break. He's able to distribute when he needs to. Drew Holiday, he's great at running the point as well. So, I look at this team overall, the Milwaukee Bucks, they have all the answers. They have an identity. They're playing a great brand of basketball. They're getting their stars to show out when they need it most. Before even Giannis was taking over the last two games versus Philly and now the Nets, you saw Drew Holiday emerge the last few months or so. And he's won them games. He's finished at the rim. He's got the ball to the right shooters. Chris Middleton is playing better basketball. You look at the Bucks from top to bottom. They're a deep team. They're well coached. They play on both ends. They have the most dominant player in Giannis Antetokounmpo, who can give you 40 on any night. He can get you rebounds and he can get you blocks. Who's a former Defensive Player of the Year. They are going. I mean, they look like they're poised to repeat right now because they seem complete in ways that teams in the East are not.
I mean, the biggest thing to me is if you would have watched this team the entire season, like we all did, knowing that Brook Lopez, if he was healthy the whole season, what would those odds look like? This team may be far and ahead. It's log jammed up at the top. Bucks would probably be in firm control of this thing had they had their rotation guy that provides that versatility and a spacer as a big who can knock down the three, which allows those driving lanes for Giannis, who's already unstoppable. If they consistently had that, it'd be different. Now, look, this Bucks team has taken a step back defensively just a tick. But something tells me by the time they get to the postseason, they'll know exactly who they are for all the reasons you use, Shanae. I love this Bucs squad. I love the evolution of Giannis. Shay had the questions in the other hour about his ability to knock down free throws. He's shown that.
Yeah.
What was that, 15 for 19 last night?
15 for...
I didn't say he can't do it. I said he's evolved.
That's a
Now
good
he can
question.
do it.
True. I didn't mean to throw you that straight. I apologize. That must be my life partner right there, partner in position to fail. My bad. But to me, it's the idea that there is... We joke about the dad jokes that Giannis uses and stuff like that. That seems trivial. Maybe it is. But having been in locker rooms like we all have, it's important because it's galvanizing of a group. You feel like your leader is one of you, and that's the beauty of this squad. When you think of big threes or big twos, they're huge personalities. They're egos, and you wonder, can they work together? Can Harden and Embiid do it? Can Simmons fit in with KD and Kyrie? Is there a question that Chris Middleton and Giannis work together? Is there a question that Drew Holiday fits in there? Is there a question that these guys don't have what it's take because they've done it before? Everything that you typically ask of a championship team, the Bucs have provided. Yeah. They've got stars. They're going to lock in and defend. The culture is built in. The coach is in tow with the players. Where is the fracture that makes you question this team, which leads me to believe they're just not sexy enough to everybody? It's in Milwaukee. They're not the big personalities. Giannis tells the dad jokes, but what else is there? To me, people get bored with great, and we're watching greatness. We're watching the best player in the world. People can come at me on Twitter if they want. We're also watching the second best team in the NBA because I think the Suns are the best.
Yeah, well, the Suns are similar to the Bucs in the fact that they're quote unquote boring. Like CP3 and D Book, they have a similar relationship. It feels like Chris Middleton and Giannis Antetokounmpo because they just like each other and they seem to get along in every facet. Now, I actually think that's also true with the Nets, and that's why I think the Nets are the biggest postseason threat at this point. Look, yesterday, if Durant's 3 goes in, we're having kind of a different conversation here because it feels like the question is then as the Nets finally figured it out, and albeit they're an 8 seed when we wake up this morning, these are 2 guys in Durant and Kyrie who have now learned to play with each other. And there's not the same question marks. What don't they have on this Nets team? Let me answer that for you. The answer is defense. Correct. Right. However,
especially transition defense because it's brutal to watch.
So the answer is defense. But if they can just find a way to hold teams down in 1 quarter of a game, they have enough offensive firepower to get over the hump and to take down the good teams 1 through 7 in terms of seeding right now in the East, in my opinion. If you look at some of the teams that they have played as of late in terms of what the Nets have done in some of those other quarters, like they were able to do it in the first and fourth quarter last night, and then they were able to do it on March 26th at Miami. They held the Heat under 23 points in 2 quarters. Like they've done it against really good teams. It's just that defense is obviously the biggest question mark. And say what you want about Kyrie, because maybe some people feel some kind of way about Kyrie, but whenever he is on the floor for any team, whether it's the Nets, whether it's in Cleveland, whether it's in Boston, he makes them better. What did he do with LeBron?
Struggled down the stretch last night.
I think, I think it's arguable. It's arguable for the Boston, right? Because you see now Boston emerging with their own identity. I think Kyrie and KD, the biggest factor is what you mentioned. It's the fact that they're family. I mean, there was a point in the game where I was watching yesterday, and in between a free throw, what happens on free throws? You go and give a high five. Yeah. They did their full-on handshake.
I saw that. It's so funny because I'm thinking that's a big third free throw that he had to make when they did that.
They did their full-on. I was like, oh, they're on a whole different level. They speak a different language, and it's almost like us against the world. There are 2 guys that have won championships. They know what it's like to be quote-unquote hated. They feel like they use that as fuel. But still, at the end of the day, the teams that win championships are teams and not necessarily just good duos. The NBA is not set up where you can have one star player, ask LeBron James who's leading the league in scoring, actually tied with Giannis. Your team is still, now in the play-in? You have to have an entire squad. The Bucs have a squad. The Nets have star players. It'll be questionable to see whether those star players can keep it together and play defense while the Bucs know exactly who they are.
And it could have changed if we had Ben Simmons when the deal got done, which a lot of us assumed was going to happen. Yeah. We felt like, okay, James is going to go be a Sixer. We're going to get Ben Simmons. We're watching this team in transition. It's going to be unbelievable.
But, if there are 2 people in the NBA that can actually understand and be patient with Ben Simmons, it's KD and Kyrie.
Yeah.
And that's why he's there. Yeah, I think it's going to work. It's just not going to work this year. And we see crazy things happen in the league. And this duo is as talented a duo as we've ever seen. Shout out to MJ and Pippen. They'll never be better than MJ and Pippen.
Chill out on that.
It's not going to happen. I heard my man Jay Will try to say it on here. It's not going to happen. MJ and Scottie forever, the duo.
Yeah.
But this group can be disruptive. I would love for it to be a Bucs Nets, but I would hate it for the Bucs because I think this team deserves to have a different opponent in the first round. It could go that way. Yeah. Could the Nets make that one interesting? Yes. But go all the way to the finals, win a championship with what they have right now? Absolutely not. You can't be 22nd in defensive efficiency in the league and get it done. Yeah. It doesn't happen.
But we got super Giannis in the postseason last year, and yet still they squeaked by the Nets.
But the difference is we still have super Giannis.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But can you have super Giannis for an entire series?
Yes.
I don't know. When you have Kyrie and Kevin Durant, though, playing at a very high level.
The last time Giannis is 5-0 versus KD in the last matchup. So, we had super Giannis, and we still have super Giannis. And that's why we're talking about today, the evolution of Giannis, because what we saw yesterday when he was playing was him, all those hours in the gym. Him being able to knock down that shot, you're like, oh, those are glimmers. He's not afraid to take, you know what you have to say? You have to take the shot to learn how to make the shot. He took the shot a couple possessions before and learned how to make it when it mattered most. So, Giannis is here to stay. I feel like we're seeing this transition of power, or U.S. government transfer of power, where Giannis has figured things out. I'm sorry. We're seeing this transfer of power where KD is right there as a top scorer. If he knocked down, we might have a different conversation. But Giannis has been the most dominant the last few weeks, and I feel like that's exactly why we talk about him and maybe winning MVP now.
Why are we questioning the dominance? It should have been answered in Game 6 versus the Suns when he went for that 50-piece to win a title. And you talk about super Giannis. He's super duper duper Giannis against the Nets. I mean, the numbers.
I know, I was going to say, it's not like last time I heard that was like born or super duper.
It was lit. I mean, I don't know.
y'all
I'm 39 now. I don't know
little
what
baby, so I guess it's super duper
My
time.
point is the numbers are crazy when it plays the Nets.
Super young. Also, Kyrie did get hurt in Game 4 in that series last year. I'm just saying. So maybe they're clicking on all cylinders. We could have a different situation than that. That's super duper.
Janae,
I'll do
would
that.
you rather Giannis take the last shot or Katie take the last shot? I mean, set aside from what happened last night.
Oh, 100% Kevin Durant.
Okay.
Like Kevin Durant, he's proven to be the most unguardable player at 7 foot with his skill set and his shot ability. But I am proud that Giannis is doing that because if he wants to be the greatest and he wants to be the best for the next 10 or so years, you have to take that shot to make it. And guess what? Last night he made it.
You're right. Okay, so Janae,
Super duper point.
Oh, thank you.
that is, you know what chuggy is?
Leave
Do you know
that
what
phrase.
chuggy
I do.
is?
I just found out what chuggy is.
Chuggy.
Okay, chill.
Leave all these
All right, we
phrases.
got more basketball to talk later in the show. LeBron and AD could be back tonight for the Lakers.
Oh, goodness.
But would that be the best move for LA? We will discuss. And does it get bigger? Pressing towards being a game time decision for Friday, sources also told Woj. Davis has not played since mid-February because of sprained right foot. So despite being tied in records, the Lakers are behind the Spurs for 10th place in the West. LA is 2 games behind 9th place Pelicans. So knowing how banged up their stars are, and obviously AD and LeBron has had all of these issues, the question is, should LeBron and AD actually return and play this season? I'll start with you.
Should they both play season? Look, AD's going to come back. LeBron's probably going to be out. I want it to end.
Come on.
I want it to end this year because it's gotten comical. I mean, I'm tired of seeing Russ out here playing how he's looking. This guy's a legend. I don't want to see him go out like this. I don't want to see these press conferences that we're seeing. I don't want to hear LeBron try and put on airs that this is the greatest season he's had in his lifetime of playing. Now, that's hyperbole, but acting like he's having a time of his life. He ain't having a time of his life. When you're wired like that and you're losing like this, I don't care about statistically what you're doing. I'm here to tell you, LeBron is having a miserable time. He wants to get through the end of this season, and the Lakers should. They should want to put this to bed. Best case scenario, they don't make the play-in.
That's the best case scenario.
That is the best case scenario. You get this thing done. You let LeBron sit out, save his miles for a legit championship run. Now, I know what he's chasing. A scoring title at 37 would be incredible. Another notch on a belt that has so many notches on it, it's absurd. And he's still chasing that Kareem all-time scoring record. I think he should stay in the Laker system and do it in a Laker uniform. I don't think he should go on and leave. But I think it needs to end this year. What are you playing for?
So why
you get into the play-in, you win a game, and then you play in a series and you get embarrassed? You're going to go out getting embarrassed. It's just going to be another embarrassing chapter to a miserable season. Why do you want to see that?
Like the Lakers woke up this morning, as Christine just said, tied for 10th, and the Spurs own the tiebreaker, or whatever it is. Nonetheless, they're still technically kind of in the play-in situation. If you get your star back, if you get your star back in Anthony Davis and LeBron and AD, who have already won a chip together, I don't need to go through all the accolades the two of them have. How could you know they're laughing on the sidelines together in street clothes? How do you not know what you have there? You don't know what's going to happen.
You know what you have there?
So just shut it down. What do you have, 7 games? I don't know. I have the Lakers schedule in front of me, but there's something
I think they
like
got 6 left, maybe?
6 games left. 6 games left, and then according to you, they're going to lose it right away in the play-in.
What do you want to see
With
happen?
7 games left, let them play it out and see what happens. Play till the end.
Christine, I apologize. It's about to go here. I'm apologizing.
You're let's throw in the towel.
Fine.
Time's up, even though our 2 stars who've already won a chip together might come back and maybe they can
What
go
happens? Tell me what happens when they come back and play together.
I don't know, Jordan. We haven't seen 2 healthy LeBron James and Anthony Davis barely at all this season, and maybe you could find a way to make some magic happen. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying the thought of shutting them down when they could potentially be healthy and find a way into a play-in seems ridiculous for 2 competitors when you only have 6 games left. What's 7 more games?
Buzzword, healthy. Anthony Davis, healthy. When does that happen? How many times have we seen that with Anthony Davis being healthy, Shay? That's the issue here. Let Anthony Davis, well, you want to play a couple games here? Fine. I hope it doesn't get to the postseason for reasons I laid out, but move on from Anthony Davis.
Why would you keep LeBron but move on from Anthony Davis?
Because give LeBron some assets
sense.
around him, retry how to make this thing work. Look, they're buried in these contracts. People might not want to take an Anthony Davis, certainly not a Russell Westbrook, but you have to try to find a way. She's pulling out the cell phone. We do this on our other shows. When she pulls out her cell phone, she's pulling out some serious stats. They're about to come. She's about to come with the pain. But ultimately, what it comes down to is you've got to find a way to think past this year. There's no miracle that's going to come. See, my wife, she hates going to bed watching shows that have a dark side to it, a horror film, a scary movie.
Do you like that? I hate that.
I kind of do.
She wants to watch the ones with a happy ending. That's what she likes to see. Shay, look at me. Get off the phone for a second. There's no happy ending with these Lakers.
I do want to ask you, Shay,
You're
what
not gonna
do
get
you
it.
think the Lakers' ceiling is then if they go into the postseason with a healthy LeBron and a healthy AD?
I'm not saying the Lakers are going to go on a run and rip through like the Grizzlies and the Warriors and the Suns. I'm not saying they're going to chip up. I'm just saying when you have two nasty competitors who've already won a chip together, they're trying to get healthy at the right time, and they have even a spark of a chance to shut that down makes absolutely no sense for me. For 6, 7, maybe 8 games, hey, if they win one, you got to win one in the play-in. You win one, you advance, and we'll go from there. But to just say, hey, let's shut it down, don't matter if they're healthy, it doesn't make sense.
You know what's so funny in all this is we're talking about, we're promoting it tonight, 10:30. Pelicans are playing the Lakers. You know who's pretty sexy to me? The Pelicans. The Pelicans quietly have a decent little roster put together there with C.J. McCollum, who gets buckets, and you got Brandon Ingram, who gets buckets. Two of the best scorers in this league. Defensively, Herb Jones is elite. Talk about a guy who can guard a bunch of different spots on the floor. Larry Nance is going to go down as one of the more intelligent moves to get him on that roster as another great defender. And Jonas Valanciunas is a big. This core is pretty cool to watch and has a chance to do some pretty cool things.
Perfect. So
but
then
move
if
Zion
Anthony Davis
there
and
too.
LeBron come back and they beat the Pelicans, are you going to change your tune?
No,
Perfect, because they could both return tonight.
No,
so then we'll talk
because
about
that's
this
my
tomorrow.
point. My point about this is, why are you yelling at me?
Why are you yelling at me?
Here's my point.
Great.
There's a future with the Pelicans. There's a future in what you see there. Core. What do we do with Zion? Do we bring Zion back and enhance this thing? Or do we move
No
Zion and
question
add
marks
some more
there.
pieces to a good culture and a group that can do some things? Right now with the Lakers, to me, it only looks like LeBron. And to me, it doesn't look like AD has a future with him. And certainly Russ does not have a future with him. And you should be concerned with only keeping LeBron, unless you're blowing this whole thing up. But the only piece that's sexy to me to keep there in LA is LeBron James. And when I look at the Lakers and I look at the Pelicans, a team they're playing tonight, and I say I enjoy watching the Pelicans more, and the Pelicans have a better future than the Lakers, we have problems.
So let's blow the whole thing up. Fine. If you want to get rid of AD and LeBron, fine. But to keep one and not the other,
That's why I love her. She's loyal. That's why I married you.
Yeah.
Loyalty.
That's right.
She wants to keep this thing together to the bitter end. I don't know about that
blow it
part.
up or keep them both. But you're not going to. What good is LeBron without another piece? We've seen duos in this league.
You need
win.
a healthy piece.
So you're going to go get
We've heard
a
it time
healthy
and time
Dame
again.
Lillard? Like,
What's
who's
the best
coming?
ability? We've heard it on this show several times. Best ability, availability. And we don't have that with Anthony Davis. And at the end of the day, LeBron James is only getting older no matter how great he's playing. These are wasted miles right now, and there's nothing worse for a legend like that than wasted miles.
The only thing I'll agree with you on is that Anthony Davis has not been healthy. He's not durable, and you're right. He's not available a lot of the times, and it's going to take him a game or two, like we've seen in the past, to obviously get his footing under him.
It'd be so weird to have a postseason without LeBron James, though, wouldn't it?
Hey, but you're not going to get it with a playing game. That's not
Yes, you
postseason.
are.
I don't want. You know what I don't
Playing
want to
game's
see?
rated so
I don't
high.
want to see LeBron James like this anymore. I don't like it. I don't like watching LeBron
He's
play
from Ohio. Let him
meaningless
have it.
basketball.
Let him have it. He's from Ohio. He's like feeling
Hey,
something.
don't do that to
Yankees, the Red Sox, some of these superstars, right? Big Papi, Manny Ramirez, right? All these that you think about. And even now, guys like Aaron Judge, I get excited about this rivalry more than I do about many of the other ones. Once again, all upper echelon. But all of sports, this one, Yankees, Red Sox takes the cake.
The audacity that you have, Sam Acho, as you sit in that office with a Bears helmet behind you makes me feel some kind of way. We live on the East Coast now, Jordan and I do, and we talk all the time about the 76ers and the Nets and the Knicks and all these teams. East Coast is represented. On the West Coast, we just got done talking about the Lakers, and you're sitting there in the Midwest with the Bears helmet behind you, and you're not going to say Bears-Packers? Are you kidding me?
Whoa.
One of the best rivalries in all of football.
I said
one of the
ghetto.
most storied rivalries in all of football. I don't care that Aaron Rodgers has owned the Bears for the better part of my lifetime. I do not care, because this is a rivalry that shows up every single year. It's always sold out. It makes people in the Midwest, whether you're a fan of the team or not, and you can attest to this, feel something, always does. The reason we were all echoing, I own you, and doing the belt with Aaron Rodgers is because we watched that game so closely, and we felt something in it. Yes, Duke NC is great. Yankees, Red Sox is great. But come on, Sam. You played for the Bears. You played in this rivalry. You have a Bears helmet behind you, and you're going to say, and what are you doing over
Jordan,
there?
what is that
You just
face for?
brought up the Bengals in the last segment, and you're going to sit here and look at me like that when you know how Bears and Packers make people in the Midwest feel?
Yeah, it makes you all feel like crap every time the game's over. You're going to talk about a rivalry with the Bears and Packers? And Sam, I love you. Shout out to Sam. He knows what it's like to play Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. Aaron Rodgers is 22-5 against you guys. I'm not calling anything.
I think it's 23-5, actually.
Whatever. It's a lot of something in 5. And at the end of the day, I'm not getting into any rivalry that is one where we know the outcome. I don't like the Titanic because I know what's going to happen at the end. It's not that great of a movie. We know this movie with the Bears and the Packers. And it ends up with Aaron Rodgers doing. Hey, I got something for you too, Sam. The Yankees and the Red Sox. Man, hey, Sam, you know what, Sam?
Those are fighting words.
Sam, you know what? Yankees, Red Sox. Name 10 players in the Yankees, Red Sox thing before you go in and pick that rivalry. Try to be cute over there. Don't do that. It's Duke, North Carolina. At the end. Go ahead, Google them, and then we'll get back to that. But while you're going to find those 10 Yankees and Red Sox, I'm going to tell you it's Duke UNC. I'm going to tell you why it's Duke UNC. It's Duke and UNC because it's got a world captivated in a sport that maybe some people don't even typically tune into until March. Look no further than this weekend. A lot of people are showing up. Over 71,000 are packing a Final Four, which doesn't always happen because they want to see this rivalry. You can go through the names. Sam, you can actually name some of them in this one. There are some talented players across the board, end up being some of the best pros. Michael Jordan. How about legendary coaches? Dean Smith, Roy Williams. We got Coach K. Hubert Davis is on his way clearly in his first season. Wildest moments have occurred in this one. Most people can't even say college basketball matchups they're excited for. People are always excited for this one. And this Final Four matchup of the teams, two we've never seen play against each other in the NCAA tournament, has the potential to be the biggest college basketball game ever. That speaks to me about a rivalry. That's why UNC Duke's number 1.
Sam, don't let him come at you with your baseball knowledge. That's not
I didn't put him on the spot. I didn't say you had to name him.
Don't let him do that.
I just said I love my brother. He ain't naming him.
Hey, here's the great thing. Here's the great thing about a rivalry. It's so big you don't have to name every single player on every team. You just think of rivalries, and that's the first thing that comes to mind. Number 1. Number 2, to your point, Jordan, I get it. Duke UNC is a huge rivalry, but you're suffering from something I would like to call recency bias. This game is coming up in a couple days, right? Tomorrow. So it's like we're talking about it all week. And so since we're talking about it all week, you're like, oh, yeah, that's the biggest, baddest rivalry. But in November, if someone asks you what's the biggest rivalry in sports, your first answer wouldn't be Duke UNC. In all reality, your first answer in November would probably be Michigan Ohio State because that's usually when they play, and that's college football season, right? In December, in January, your first answer might be Bears, Packers, whatever. You got to take out the recency bias, right? I get it. They're playing tomorrow. I get it. Final Four, all those kinds of things. But I didn't, and Shay, to your point, I didn't take this question, and we can at home or wherever we're watching, talking about it, take this question from, well, this is my favorite team, or this is where I'm from, or this is a region. You got to take this question from, take out your favorite sport. Take out your favorite team. Take out the city you grew up in, and then peel all the layers back and say, man, what is the biggest rivalry, not just in basketball, not just in college basketball, not just in football, not just in college football or the NFL, in all of sports. To your point, Jordan, I'm not a huge baseball fan. I'm not a huge baseball guy. But when the Yankees and the Red Sox are playing, I'm watching. They're starting off the season this year. When they're playing, I'm tuned in. I'm keyed in. It's similar for Duke UNC. I played for the Bears Packers, so I'm playing in those games, but similar to all these games. But for me, all of the sports, the first thing that comes to mind, you start thinking, not just the first one, oh, well, I played with the Bears. Oh, well, Duke's playing tomorrow. No. All of sports, it's Yankees and it's Red Sox.
Okay, see, and I also think it depends on, what sport kind of moves the needle for you, where you would lean towards what's the biggest rivalry. And obviously for me, maybe that is football. I thought Sam would be on my team for that. Apparently not. But nonetheless, I actually disagree with Jordan wholeheartedly on Duke UNC.
Shocker.
Look, I'm excited to watch Duke UNC. I'm a sports fan, of course. I love March Madness. I get all that. But I'm excited to watch Duke play anybody. I'm excited to watch North Carolina play anybody because they're consistently good. It doesn't have to be in March Madness or in the NCAA tournament to make me feel something about this rivalry. Whereas Bears and Packers, yes, I'm a football fan, and the NFL is a little bit different, so I feel like we watch every single week. But when Bears and Packers play each other, no matter where I am, that's must-see TV. And I guess Yankees-Red Sox is the same way. I'm not sitting watching every single Yankees game because I'm not a Yankees fan, and same with the Red Sox. But when they play each other, it makes me feel something. It's different for Duke UNC.
Well, I just think it puts on perfect display. And look, Sam, you're absolutely right. A recency bias, of course that plays here. I'm getting excited to go down there to New Orleans and watch this matchup, Christine, Shay, and Sam. So without question, that plays a role, but it's on the precipice of what it's delivering. It's delivering a mass interest. And anytime you can insert hyperbole with logic, it speaks to what it actually is. And to me, the fact that this could be the most highly anticipated college basketball game ever. Take a Jordan Bird in 79, take UNLV Duke, take Michigan Fab Five and Duke, and you could throw it in the conversation simply because of what the two teams mean and the hatred in the fan bases. And you saw it with the handshake from the classy Coach Hubert Davis and the very classy Duke staff, too, when we had that handshake gate. There's no love lost here. You need an insertion of drama, too. It delivers that. You've got high-level talent, which you're going to see playing for a long time after this. I think there's something to be said for that, too. You're seeing the infancy of careers here, where guys will be remembered from some of their performances here. I think about Tyler Hansborough and the bloody nose, Austin Rivers and the game winner with Doc and family in hand. And then you get to go on and watch them play professionally. That part is really cool, too. They haven't been established quite yet, and the best is in front of them. I love that about it.
I'm very surprised. I'm surprised Sam didn't go football, but also like college football. I'm surprised that nobody went college football.
Well, you could easily say, and I bet my timeline's going to be lit up with
Texas,
Alabama, Auburn, Georgia,
Notre Dame,
Florida,
Miami.
Notre Dame SC. Notre Dame SC is probably it now.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a ton of them. And I think ultimately what might win the day would be Shays. And again, it's all opinion, but NFL's king. So if you're going to take a rivalry, you're probably going to take it in the sport that drives the most eyes. And to me, that might be where you have ultimately the point.
I do feel like the Bucs Nets, to tie it back to the NBA too, is starting to create a really good rivalry between those two teams.
Get active offensively to beat a very good Creighton squad. They had 4 players in double figures. Aaliyah Boston put up those monster numbers, 28 points and 22 rebounds. I think that they have cracked open their offense a little bit more. So I'm rolling with South Carolina and the Naismith National Player of the Year, Aaliyah Boston, to get it done and finish the redemption story.
Okay, I hear you, Monty, because if there's a team that is extremely motivated to win based on Aaliyah Boston and last season, that heartbreak, yeah, it makes sense, right? But, you know, come on.
I was going to say, you
come
can't.
Come on. We're in the building, baby. We're in the building. We're defending champs for a reason, okay? We're defending champs for a reason. I feel like you asked the question for Monica because we all know my answer. Stanford. I got to go with Stanford, and I'll give you the reasons why. Yes, everyone's going to say there are stars on all these teams. Louisville, you look at South Carolina, you look at UConn, and yes, I think a lot of people expect maybe like, okay, we don't know who per se is going to win, but we do know that whoever wins is going to play some defense. I mentioned this earlier. All 4 teams in the Final Four have top 18 defenses. And so whoever defends is going to win. And let me tell you about the defense of the Stanford Cardinal. They've got some pro bodies out there. Cameron Brink in the paint is a helicopter swatting every shot. Haley Jones, who probably could be matching up against Paige Beckers, is 6'1". So it's going to be interesting to see what Paige does with that length and athleticism. And when I go athleticism, have y'all heard of Fran Belibi? I know you've seen her. She's all over the screens for dunking throughout her first few seasons as Stanford Cardinal. You look at this squad, Stanford. I mean, I know a lot of people say, oh, they won the championship. We'll see if there's championship hangover. They're hungry as well. So if there's motivation, I look at South Carolina. They were motivated to redeem themselves. Stanford, they're motivated because they have arrived. And mind you, I thought, I'm going back into my personal days. I'm sorry, guys.
Of course.
So I thought my sister and I, NECA, we were destined to win a championship. NECA was born in 1990. I was born in 1992. Those are the 2 years that Stanford won championships. So I was like, we're going to Stanford and we're going to win one. Well, finally, this Stanford squad, I don't want to say broke the curse, but they got that off of their back. They won a championship. They're confident. And they have 4 out of their 5 starters returning. And I said, this is a year where the transfer portal is booming. So to return a squad, they also have a top-tier coach, Hall of Famer, all-time winningest in the women's game. Y'all can tell this goes on and on and on for your girl. My love for Stanford, but I am also impressed by Aaliyah Boston and Coach Staley, the Cardinals, plural, of Louisville, and then UConn is trying to make some noise, finally getting Paige back. So your girl's a homer. I'm sorry. Actually, I'm not.
Janae, do not apologize for being a homer at all, because I'm not going to hold you. If Georgetown was here, I would be completely irrational. You guys wouldn't be able to talk to me. And you make a great point about what Stanford returns. But in that game, you've got a UConn squad that returns 80 or 93% of its offense, and then the Stanford squad, like you said, that returns 82% of its offense. And I do love your mention of Cameron Brink, but your girl, as a helicopter, is subject to being landed by TSA due to foul trouble in big-time second half throughout this tournament. So if she can manage the foul trouble thing, You're right. I'm just saying, if she can work through the foul trouble thing, I think we're in for two really great games tonight. And I will say, of all the squads remaining, in terms of rolling on both sides of the basketball, you have to give the nod to Stanford in terms of their depth. And I think their defense is a little bit underrated, surprisingly. But when we looked at the comparison of their defense to Texas's defense, which has been praised all season long, they were eerily, eerily similar. And so I feel you. You have every reason to be confident. And if we do get Stanford and South Carolina in the national championship game, I think we look back at last year, it was this close. It was this close. So the conversation genuinely could go either way. But I just think the heartbreak, I think the image that we saw repeatedly of Aaliyah crumbling in agony after she couldn't get that putback to fall, I just think that South Carolina is not going to let that go. And you mentioned the coaches in this thing. So much greatness, much greatness. Don Staley has done a tremendous job with that program. Obviously, Tara and Gino, you're talking about the winningest coach of all time and then the coach that has the most national championship experiences. So it's going to be fantastic. That is for sure. I still am rolling with South Carolina, though. I think they heard me and other folks talking about their offense, and now they're finally ready to turn it over on both sides of the basketball as well. But as I'm watching them, I think Letitia Amihere has the potential to be an X factor because she can play that big guard spot and see over some of the pressure that Louisville's going to bring.
Okay, I'm going to slide UConn into this conversation because you mentioned, Gino, they're going for their 12th straight national title. Would you want to see UConn win another one, Monica?
I'm sorry, my IFB is not working anymore. I don't know. I can't hear you. I don't understand. Like, I just can't. I don't know. Girl, of course not. I mean, and this is not from, like, you appreciate UConn. As women's basketball fans, you definitely appreciate UConn. But I'm not going to hold you. I played in the Big East. In my Final Four, or in my NCAA tournament experience, I wish we had gotten to a Final Four. I lost to UConn by 6 in the Sweet 16, and we were on SportsCenter. And I will never forget one of the anchors saying, this highlight would be a lot different if Georgetown had actually pulled it off, but they didn't. And I was like, oh, God. And so, yes, Paige Beckers is here back at home. It's a great story. UConn has represented the gold standard. But, I mean, come on. Like, I'm all for some new, fresh blood. Let's go.
Okay, let's erase this idea of our network and a bias because you got two people on here that, you know what, they say, if you ain't got no haters, you ain't popping. So if you got haters, you popping, right? So UConn has been popping for a while. But let me just do something real quick. My last game was a loss to UConn in the Final Four. I played in 3 Final Fours.
Can relate.
And my highlight versus UConn was my freshman. Oh, my gosh, y'all got it.
Oh, no.
Look at baby Nate.
Yes.
Oh, my gosh. This is my freshman year where my job was to guard Maya Moore. And we broke their huge win streak. And it was, look at me.
Yes,
And there's Coach Tara. So, yes, anybody that plays women's basketball, particularly, at a high level, plays against UConn, and you're tested. And in this matchup, we got a huge win. I remember Jeanette Poland dropped about 40. I was playing with my sis. This was the first moment where I was like, okay, this is what it's like, not only to be a top player and be in a part of a top program, but also play against the pros because UConn is always stacked with pros. I don't want to see them win.
For sure.
And I'm allowed to say that today and today only, just because my squad's in there. But more importantly, it's just a beautiful testament to how great their program has been. And now we have the door open for anybody's championship, especially the last few years. I know Paige has a lot to say about it. AZ has a lot to say about it. Kristen has a lot to say about it. Coach Gino has a lot to say about it. But when you ask this question, like, does anyone want to see them win? I'm like, I'm good, boss. I'm good, love. Enjoy.
Exactly. Nailed it.
Monica, it's so great seeing you. Hold it down out there in Minneapolis.
Oh, say hi to NECA. NECA's out there. Hey, big sis.
Say hi to NECA. Say hi to all
I know,
of our
it's
friends that
funny
are out
we're
there.
talking about UConn, but Sue Bird has the sort of, you mentioned the telecast. That's going to be lots of fun. Had a chance to catch up with her yesterday. UConn will be well represented, we know. But it is exciting to see what could be and who's going to ultimately take home the crown.
Awesome. All right, have fun. Stay warm. All right, bye, Monty. Duke, Carolina, Kansas, and Nova. It's hard to ask for a better Final Four than that, but who's going to win? Predictions coming up.
So many better ones than that one.
He has a lot of good ones.
And I tune in. I do
It's the
tune in.
life I live. Nothing's ever good enough for it.
I do tune in.
Never
To be honest,
entertained.
dad jokes, they've been better than that one. But I do come for it. You love a good dad joke.
I feel like that's why I said super duper guy. That's like
You've
a
been
super
calling me
duper thing
corny
to
as
do.
heck all show.
No,
like,
I called you
As you are.
Chuggy.
Chuggy. That's the new term, Chuggy.
Okay.
Don't look it up, y'all. You'll look at me differently.
It's a big weekend, obviously, in college hoops. Let's go with predictions. Let's start with Duke UNC. That's, I think, the biggest one that everybody's talking about this one specifically, obviously, because of Coach K and the rivalry. Shay.
I'm going to go Duke, and I'm going to skip ahead, and I know we're going to get to Kansas and Villanova in a minute, but I'm going to take Duke to win it all simply because I just don't want it to end. And I found myself cheering for Duke. I don't even have a dog in the race. Every game they've played, like through the end of the season, conference tournament, and now into the NCAA tournament, because I just want to see Coach K go all the way. It's fun basketball to watch. There's a storyline to it. So
Nao Gumake blessing us with her presence on the East Coast.
Yes.
It's a good day. April 1st. April 1st. We're all holding it down.
This is great for us. We
I
usually
know.
pay for a mediator. Now we just have it for
Oh,
work.
good.
I got
better
y'all.
go.
I've got my popcorn ready.
yeah, right?
Very excited about that. We got a lot to get to. You guys saw it. We start in the association, where we got a really, really good one last night. The Milwaukee Bucks took down the Brooklyn Nets 120 to 119. Giannis Antetokounmpo had 44 points, 14 rebounds, and 6 assists. His second straight 40-point game, including a 3 that forced overtime. KD led all Nets with 26, 11, and 7, but he missed a crucial 3 that would have won the game for the defending champs. The win clinched a return to the postseason. So the matchup previewed a potential first-round meeting with the Bucks, sitting half a game back of first in the Eastern Conference, while the Nets are still in 8th. According to Caesars, the two teams are currently co-favorites to win the East. So that leads us into our first question. Out of these two teams, who do you guys think is the bigger threat in the postseason? Chanae, I'll start with you.
The bigger threat, it's interesting because when you think about threats, you would think it could be the Nets, right? Because they are at the 8th spot and they could threaten a Milwaukee Bucks or, a Miami Heat at the top. But the real answer is the defending champs, the Milwaukee Bucks. Because if you watched yesterday and any of their past few games, you can even say from, the start of the year, they've won the games that matter most. Right now, they're sitting, I believe, at number 2 in the East. They're right where they want to be as defending champs, like flying under the radar. Not number 1, so they have enough motivation. They're the biggest threats to repeat for themselves. And I love it because they're so consistent. I mean, Giannis Antetokounmpo, I had to go out there and tweet it. Like, we're watching the Giannis evolution. He's evolving. That 3 to force overtime was impressive. It looked fluid. That crossover drawback and then knocking down the 3. Mind you, right before he missed the 3. So you can think the mental game, maybe I shouldn't shoot that. He took it in flow and helped his team win the game. You look at this team overall, Drew Holiday in their championship, run was a huge X factor. He's a two-way guard that has size, that can defend, but also he brings out the best in his teammates, one including Giannis and one including Chris Middleton, who, mind you, Chris Middleton, a lot of people starting the year was like, where has he been? He's averaging about 18 points per game. Well, he's turned it on ever since, after All-Star, averaging about 25. So you're getting that great basketball that we saw last year in the run where they won the championship. And now you look overall, like, threats to themselves, maybe. Like, they are playing motivated. I like the Milwaukee Bucks to not only come out of the East, but more importantly, I think they can threaten whether it's the Suns or any team, maybe the Grizzlies as dark horses. You look at these teams in the West, they feel like they're most poised to win a championship, and they know exactly what it took to get there.
I feel like if you look at yesterday's game, to come away and say that one team favored over the other at this point in time would be hard to do. I mean, look, if Durant was like a centimeter the other way for that 3 he took to actually win the game, we would be talking more, I feel like, today about the Nets than we are the Bucks. But nonetheless, my opinion, it would be the Nets. I hear what you're saying about the Bucks, and again, I'll go back to, like, it's one or the other. It's 1A, 1B. But Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving together is a scary thing to watch at this point. They now have developed a little bit more chemistry. Like, I'm not going to look to what's going on in Philadelphia with the Sixers, a team that can't find an identity when there's clearly one here with the Nets. And these two are figuring it out. And if you look last season and what happened with the Brooklyn Nets, I mean, it's a shoe size away from them advancing in terms of what Kevin Durant was able to do. Kyrie Irving obviously got hurt in Game 4, and yet still the Bucks barely squeaked by the Nets. So for me, I feel like these two, yes, they're the 8 seed, but in terms who are they the biggest threat to? Every single team 1 through 8 they can compete with in the East. So for me, give me Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, because Kevin Durant, I wouldn't want to face him. I don't care who was on my roster.
Right out of the gates, we're arguing with this. Because to me, it's fascinating as I watch the game, right? Because the Bucks, they're clearly that team. This shouldn't be too much of a conversation. What the statement I think is accurate, the Nets might be the best low seed we've seen in a long time, maybe ever. That's intriguing. But it's always the sexy conversation. Let's talk about the Nets. Let's talk about the Sixers. Let's talk about the Celtics. They're on a run. Robert Williams bounces out a little bit. Now they've kind of taken a step back. Let's talk about the Bulls. Everybody wants to talk about teams outside of the Bucks. It's incredible. These are the reigning champions. And if I'm picking one player in the world to build my team around, he plays for the Bucks. It's Giannis. If you watch these last 2 games he's played, It's very clear what he did against the Sixers, what he's turned around here and done against these Nets. He's made the statement he's the best player in the world. He plays on the best team. And when we talk about building big threes, why is every conversation go past the big three for the Milwaukee Bucks? How is it not Giannis, Chris Middleton, and Drew Holiday?
Because they're new.
It's because they're boring. And that's the problem. It's not the sexiest look, Shanae, and it bugs me.
Look, we agree, but I would not say that they're boring because anyone that watched that game last night was anything but boring. And Giannis's game, a lot of people say, why is he not in the MVP? You know, we'll probably get to that. And they're like, oh, it's because, you know, the way he dunks is not exciting. If you watch him play, the way he takes on the entire squad, especially to force those free throws late, he literally took on the entire defense, and we thought it was a KD foul, but it wasn't, and then knocks down his free throws. This team is super exciting. I think it's just the movement, like you said, from, you know, whether
Why is it a conversation, Shanae? Why isn't it obvious that it's Giannis is the best player? This guy's probably the defensive player of the year and win a scoring title.
It comes down
and
to
it's
the
still not
definition
set.
of what does best player constitute. Because a lot of times when we talk about best player, we think, all right, you have to have overall skill. We think of a LeBron James and how he is able to touch every facet of the game. We think about a Kevin Durant and how he's the best scorer, right? When we think about Giannis Antetokounmpo, he may not necessarily be the best player, but what we're seeing is him step into that bag. I mean, yesterday, knocking down that three when it mattered most, that's evolution. When I think about Giannis, even more importantly, this guy does not take a possession off. Like, he does not take a possession off. And I always say the best quality to have is that create that contagious energy. Drew doesn't take a possession off. Chris keeps weathering the storm. They just got Brooke back. Their identity is through their best player. And he may not be what a lot of people consider the entire best, you know, overall, but he's the most dominant. And to me, that's the most important.
See, we're hoopers. So we say it's not boring because that's attractive basketball. But you know what is boring that does get overlooked? And that broadcast did a great job of pointing it out last night. At the half, Chris Middleton, sitting there talking to Bobby Portis, a guy who's a very passionate guy, is a very fiery competitor, breaking down rotations, where they need to be better going into the second half. It's culture. That's a group that's won a lot of games. That's a group, we hear so much in the NBA, this guy's not happy with his playing time. Is this guy even going to be in uniform? What's the deal with this locker room? Call-outs in postgame. You don't hear that with Milwaukee.
No problem.
They have their identity. They have no problems. We sit up on this desk, it's great. I know I'm going to do good TV with you guys. I know you guys. This Bucs squad knows who they are, and that's what's put them in position here to go on a run. There's no question marks. What would be the biggest question mark, Shay? What would it be?
Can Giannis make his free throws?
And he's
and that's not even a question anymore.
We said if Giannis gets a jump shot, league, watch out. The man had to step back to tie the game and force overtime.
His first ever game tying or go ahead.
Come on. He's evolved in every space. Whatever you want. You want free throws? Cool. He'll make them down the stretch. You want a jump shot? He's hitting a step back. This guy does it all. He's evolved his game to answer any question marks. And it seems so long ago that Harden said that, oh, that guy's just a guy who dunks the ball. You kidding me?
Well, and then meanwhile, what is Giannis doing? Well, he went through the 76ers and Harden and Embiid, and then last night Durant and Kyrie, and then at the end of the game he's like telling dad jokes. Like, it's no big deal at all. But I just think when you look back at what Brooklyn Nets have been able to do, and like we've all ridden the roller coaster with them all season long, right? With everything that's gone on with Kyrie and James Harden exit, and it feels like now they're finally starting to find their footing. And like, you don't even have to look at Kyrie and Kevin Durant, but like Seth Curry is playing good basketball. Like, this Nets team has figured it out. And I feel like we aren't able to give them enough credit because like Giannis is standing in the way. The Nets are scary to any team they face because they have Kevin Durant on their roster or Kyrie Irving. It doesn't even matter. And you normally beat the drum for Kevin Durant every time we talk about it.
Yeah, but we know the circumstances surrounding the Brooklyn Nets. I think right now they have the 21st worst defense in the NBA. And when the game slows down, the Nets will have to play defense as they had to and stop top players, and they found that difficult in stopping Giannis yesterday. Even though it was a tremendous matchup, I think that the Nets are the biggest threats to upset maybe a top team considering their positioning. Right now in the standings, they're at 8. I would not want to play against the Nets if in the first round, if they surviving the play-in and you're going up against a Miami Heat or the Bucs. Like, the Bucs are probably going to feel confident based on what they just experienced. But I think the Nets are more likely to upset, right, any point in the playoffs. But the Bucs are more likely to win a championship coming out of the East.
How crucial is Ben Simmons not being on that team for the Nets in their postseason run?
It's going to be really fascinating. And I've been explaining this to people, like, we got hoopers out here, okay? I've been explaining this to people in different ways. you know, they are so talented, and you're right, Shay. Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are so talented, they can make you forget that they have another superstar on the bench. And they can still possibly, you know, if things fall their way, circumstances are better defensively, they can make their way, you know, into the Eastern Conference Finals coming from an 8 position. But the reality is Ben Simmons could really help them because defense is his specialty. This is someone that can guard 1 through 5, even though he's a point guard. He can get you a rebound. And I've said the big difference in his departure from Philly is the fact that when you're doing that, when you get the rebound and you're doing the pick and roll, right? You're pushing and you push to a, you know, wing player. That pick and roll with Ben in Philly, he'd pick it, you know, he'd pass it, he'd roll, and there'd be Tobias Harris or Joel Embiid demanding the paint. Now when you're doing that in Brooklyn, who's going to be in the paint? It's going to be yours. He's going to play 5, even though he's going to bring the ball up as a point guard. So he kicks it over to Kyrie or to KD, and he'll be able to be a threat exactly where he wants to be in the paint. That's where his comfort zone is, right? So that's the big difference. Offensively, things are going to get so much simpler for him if he were to be able to play, which, mind you, I don't think he is because we haven't seen any of the writing on the wall. But the fact that, you know, the Brooklyn Nets have been able to, you know, deal with this circumstance, still compete in games, has been extremely impressive. If they were able to get Ben back, that would be the icing on the cake.
Look, if they bring Ben back, it would elevate my belief in the Nets. Defensively, absolutely. But when I look at the Bucs, the reason why I love the Bucs is their third piece is Drew Holiday, the best perimeter defender in the league. He elevates that defense. That's where he really makes his mark on this squad. Ben Simmons can bring that defensive versatility, interchangeability, and elevate them, no question. But rhythm. When does he get into this lineup? When can he play? We're talking about a guy between the ears more so than any athlete in professional sports. And you're asking him to step in with all that's on the line for the Nets, for Ben Simmons, that's a wild unknown.
At this point, though, I feel like if the Nets can just figure out a way to have one good defensive quarter because of all the offensive firepower they have, at any point through the rest of the regular season into the postseason, they could figure it out. Like last night, they played well in the first and the fourth quarter defensively. In between, it stinks. And so they have to figure out a way to just hold a team that's as good as they are one quarter defensively, and maybe they can proceed.
Okay, let's talk about another team in the East, the team that Ben Simmons left. The 76ers, who are having some issues, to say the least. Philly took their 3rd loss in a row last night to Detroit, 102-94. They were outscored 39-8 by the second unit. But when asked if the problem was the Philly bench, head coach Doc Rivers said there was someone else to blame for their struggles. Listen to this.
Well, they didn't struggle. You know, they didn't get a lot of shots, you know, in their defense. I think during that stretch, it was more James, than them. So, that's just a tough night.
Okay, so as I mentioned, Detroit's bench outscored Philly 39-8, which is crazy. But knowing that, is Doc putting too much blame on Harden? Jordan, I'll start with you.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. This is all on James Harden. Because how do you judge stars in the NBA? Postseason and closing time, fourth quarters. The last 6 fourth quarters for James Harden, these numbers are not suitable for work. They're absolutely awful. He's 4 of 19. He's got 8 turnovers, plus minus a minus 31, Shanae. Is that a star? Is that a group, a franchise that's mortgaged everything, their future, and put a competitor in their own conference in position, not to be good, to be far and away elite in the Nets for years to come with the capital that they deliver that team, thinking James fixes you right away. James has to be a star just a clip below Joel Embiid, who's in that MVP conversation doing things we've never seen from a big. Is he doing that? Is James Harden delivering that? He's a ball stopper. He's not a good defender. And now you're seeing fractures in a locker room. The reason why I love the Bucs, they don't have any of that. We are days removed from Joel Embiid calling out Doc Rivers saying, hey, look, this is a rotation issue. Why am I not out there playing when we're getting the business from Giannis? A couple days later, Doc Rivers is calling out a guy shades of what happened before with Ben Simmons, and Ben Simmons is no longer in a uniform. This is vintage Sixers stuff, and the problem is the guy that's in that locker room you hope will fix it alongside Joel Embiid is James Harden, and he ain't built for it, and that's the problem.
You know what? I don't think it's fair that we say he's not built for it because this guy has been one of the most durable players, and I'll push back on he is a star. James Harden is a star that has risked it all to change teams so that he can pursue a championship. And I think it was a big adjustment when he went to Brooklyn, and the biggest factor that we saw that was probably the best part of his game that he needs to tap into now was that he could lead the league in assists. Like, he can pass. He can make his teammates better. And that's sort of what he needs to remember in this moment. You can't shoot your way into success when you're playing with a teammate like Joel Embiid, who should be the focus. Because right now, that big man is balling. 37 and 15, even in a loss, that's the biggest frustrating point for me. You see someone that your running mate is trying to be MVP. If I'm playing with someone trying to be MVP, I'm trying to make you look great. I'm trying to win these games that matter. I'm trying to win games that, quote unquote, may not matter. If you think about the Detroit Pistons, like, that's a must-win game. Yeah. You should not lose that game, and you should not lose by my shooting. And I think that's what Doc Rivers is saying. He shot the ball. We're putting the ball in his hands. He wants to try to be the hero, because sometimes when you're playing ball, you feel like you can save it all with one possession. And then you have that, like, idea, like, all right, it didn't go well, so you, like, feel more and more. And I think that's a lot of pressure on James to try to create these solutions when he realizes that his solution is actually what you discovered by leaving Houston, passing the ball and making teammates better. So when I heard Doc Rivers call out James Harden, I was like, first of all, that man's tired, and that man is honest, because he realizes that the stakes are high for them. They risked it all to get James Harden. They realized that this is probably the best pick-and-roll duo you can have, with a center and an MVP candidate in Joel Embiid. And now you're losing games to the Detroit Pistons because our shooter's not making shots. You got to shout out the supporting cast, or realize, all right, it may not be my night. Let me get it to Joel, or let me get it to someone who can knock down the ball. So I looked to that soundbite. I was like, good. You guys need to let all that. I was going to say something nasty like, the pimple pop. You need to get all that nastiness out of there. I know, that's the weirdest thing.
And you were looking at me when you said that. What's really good?
That's really good. So the reality is, my little sister's like trying to be into dermatology, so all my conversations with my little sister Erica is like all about that stuff. She loves Dr. Pimple Popper. But you want all of that mess to come out so you can have a clear surface and a better foundation. And I think that's exactly what we saw with Miami. Well, Miami, after their, after their altercation, will they get things together? After these losses, will Philly be able to get things together? It will really be intriguing to see if they can figure it out, because James Harden is forcing them to do it in the postseason and not the regular season.
Okay, and I'll say this. Look, Harden deserves some of the blame, yes. But, let's also look at Tyrese Maxey. When he arrived and the honeymoon season was going on in Philadelphia, we were looking at a big three in Philadelphia. That included Tyrese Maxey. These last three losses, Maxey has been terrible in situations where he needs to be good. And by the way, they're minus 39 with him on the floor and plus 19 with him off of it. He has not been able to produce or be that third guy, the third option for them to succeed. Now, back to James Harden. He has played 4 horrendous games in Philadelphia. And if you compare that, he's only been there 6 weeks, really? Right. I mean, the rest of the stars in the NBA have probably had as many bad games as him in 6 weeks in Philadelphia. And, oh, by the way, let Harden do that in the postseason. Let him show up and not be there in the fourth quarter.
He's done
or
that plenty
have
of times before.
But right, in Philadelphia, oh, my God, they won't even be able to compose themselves in that city. Are you kidding me? Yeah. So Harden needs to figure this out quickly. Otherwise, we're going to have some very disgruntled people in Sixers Nation.
Christine, he's not the same guy anymore. Coming off the injury, he's still a star. Yeah. I mean, come on. I could never dream of doing the things he does with the basketball. But at the end of the day, I don't think he has what it takes to flip a narrative going into the postseason. And when you go into the postseason, I envision this is Game 6 of the Western Conference semis versus Spurs. Western Conference semis versus Golden State, when he went 2 of 12 from the three-point line? That's what I envision coming from him now, because he's not comfortable. He's not the same guy. And I think he feels that pressure, and that pressure is going to bust pipes.
I think a lot of people think the narrative when it comes to James Harden is, he doesn't show up in the postseason. But if you actually look at those years when he was in Houston, he had to do it all. And then there was an issue with running out of gas. When you look at Houston, you also see that they had a revolving door of stars to try to match his talent. I mean, I'm not that old, but there was Dwight Howard, and you had so many different iterations. You had Chris Paul, then you had Russell Westbrook. And then now he goes to Brooklyn, and he's a new guy. And we all know when you get to a new team, it's hard to find that identity. Now you're the new guy again. I can understand why James Harden, that postseason has evaded him, especially with how other teams are set up and how dominant other players have become. But I would say this is the year for him to figure it out, because this is the best post player he's ever played with. Joel Embiid and the season he's having right now, that is a blessing. And so if we're going to say this narrative should change, it should change this season, because you have a pick and roll partner where you should be allowed to cook. And so I'm reserving all judgment until what he does here in Philly, and then we'll see if that's his true narrative.
But you just laid them all out. It's like that Vince Vaughn line in a breakup. It's not the problem. He's the problem. Right. I mean, that's it. He's aligned himself with great opportunities, It hasn't resulted in anything.
Yeah, I mean, but I really do think that when you are aligning yourself with great opportunities, a lot of it was falling in love with the three-point shot or creating through offense. This is a team that's very, more so defensive-oriented with filling in their length and their athleticism and their tenacity. And then you're pairing yourself with a great post where your game should be shining right now. So I'm going to reserve all judgment for him in the postseason for this team and this circumstance, contrary to what he's experienced in the past.
So I'm going to ask you, then if James Harden does not perform in the postseason this year, does that mean his window has completely closed?
I don't think his window is closed, but I would be looking at Joel Embiid's window closing, right? Because every year, Joel Embiid gets healthier. And every year as he gets healthier, he gets closer to being MVP. And if I'm Joel, I'm doing everything possible to not only win in the postseason, because he's had some really tough losses, right? Think about Toronto. But now you're trying to win a championship. You finally got me healthy, and it seems like our team isn't getting it together. And I think that's why you're hearing these different comments. All right, we got to get these rotations right. It might seem unusual that a star player is calling out a coach, per se, but guess what? He wants to win. All right, coach, calling out star player and James Harden. You wonder about that situation. Ooh, does this mean it's bad? No, this is good. Because guess what? The stakes are high. When this man is on the floor, you should be playing winning basketball. And they have not done that lately, especially against top teams, against other star players. You have to figure it out and figure it out right now. You better have those conversations.
And you nailed it. I mean, what a waste of a season, Shanae, it would be for Joel Embiid to do what he's doing, which is incredible. He is must-see TV. For that to be wasted, and worse than all that, look at what the East is now. There's no, this is the AFC in the NFL. There is no path where you're watching. Everyone's getting better before your eyes right now.
Right. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
Okay, we got some college hoops coming up. Sorry, guys.
I was like, that was profound for me. Silence the table.
You two are leaving us.
Is that your first ever mic drop?
Yeah, right?
Okay,
I feel like I should walk off like Costanza. That's it.
Most of us get a certain number of opportunities. Some of us get more than others.
Curry, a high three, got it!
The best opportunities are the opportunities that are backed up with belief. Strong belief. It's not just about opportunity, man. It's about someone believing in you.
The madness has hit its peak.
We're going to be ready. You be ready, and let's see what happens. Let's see what the hell happens.
Oh, yeah, we got some really good ones this weekend as we get closer to crowning a men's college hoops champ. And it's all blue blood, which means it's really good. And I know our guy, Seth Greenberg, is excited to see it. Seth Greenberg here with us. I want to start with the most intriguing matchup because, of course, the history, what this game means specifically for Coach K this season. Is this Duke's last game? So in Duke, UNC, what chance does UNC have to get this win?
I think they've got a great chance. They're Belichickian in terms of everyone does their job. The pieces fit. You think about R.J. Davis, since he's been put with the ball in his hands, all of a sudden offense runs better. Why does it run better? Because he facilitates. Brady Maddox knocking down jumpers. Caleb Love gets the ball when he's ready to shoot it. He's done a great job of putting Armando Bacot in ball screens. He hits him on the roll. Leaky Black defends. The pieces fit for this North Carolina team, and they don't have the pressure that Duke has because you know what? The NCAA tournament's been about the team. Now all of a sudden it's Duke and Carolina, Coach K's last dance. It's going right back to being about Coach K. Can he win it? Can he win that 6th national championship? Can he separate himself? So I look at this North Carolina team. They're defending at an elite level, only giving up 66 points a game. Defensively, from the field, they're giving up 36% from the field, 26 from the three-point line. They're in a stance. They keep the ball in front. They contest shots. They're connected defensively. And then offensively, they're Belichickian. Everyone does their job.
Coach, as you look at this matchup, obviously Duke fell flat at Cameron Indoor in what was arguably the biggest regular season game in the history of Duke basketball. What adjustments do the Blue Devils need to make on this stage?
Yeah, Jordan, they got to guard that middle ball screen. I thought Carolina absolutely exploited them in that middle third ball screen with R.J. Davis and Armando Bacot and sometimes back screening with Brady Maddox. And that's going to be a matchup to watch. That matchup to watch. Jeremy Roach is now playing 35 minutes a game, and R.J. Davis, the guy that wins that matchup, probably will win the game. if you can contain the ball off that high ball screen, keep R.J. Davis out of the lane, you've got a great chance. But if he turns the corner, basically drags two, and now all of a sudden becomes a playmaker, you've got problems because R.J. Davis's ability to be a playmaker, be a scorer and a shot creator has been a difference. Duke must guard that middle ball screen. The second thing they must do is they got to make Armando Bacot defend. Because when he's on the floor, they're plus 330. When Armando Bacot's off the floor, they're minus 80. That's a big difference. Go at him. Go at him with Mark Williams. Get him posted up. Put him in ball screens. Attack him in those ball screens. I think those are the two things that Duke must do if they're going to win this game.
Coach, see, that's why you're the best, man. You're my basketball Buddha because you nailed it. To me, everyone wants to talk about guards. Of course they do. Jay Will can't get enough of talking about guards. Shocker, he is one. I'm a big. And I think this one comes down to those bigs. And Mark Williams, to me, has been the most important piece to the Duke Blue Devils, most especially in this tournament. A rim protector. If he's not blocking a shot, he's in the stream of consciousness from the opposition where he's affecting and altering shots. I think he's going to go at Armando Bacot. I think they're going to try and establish him, take Armando out of the game. That was the difference in the first matchup. Duke was able to roll by 20 because Armando Bacot got into some foul trouble. I expect them to do much of the same. I think it's going to be that front line that leads the way for Duke. Paolo Banchero and Mark Williams, and see if the intestinal fortitude is omnipresent for this North Carolina front line.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, Banchero's going to have to guard Brady Maddox also. And Brady Maddox is going to space the floor and shot fake and maybe put it on the floor. So Banchero's a tough matchup. You don't guard Banchero with one guy. You guard Banchero with 6 eyes. What I mean by that is the guy that's guarding him and the two guys in help position, they've got to have 6 eyes on him at all times to shrink the court a little bit, help when he drives it and spins, be in help to kind of give help, maybe get a strip, maybe get a block, but take him out of the game that way. But Maddox on the other end, he's got to guard, Banchero's got to guard Maddox. And Maddox, you think about what he's done in the NCAA tournament, he's absolutely been terrific. The thing that makes Carolina difficult is you think about in the NCAA tournament, they've had 4 different leading scorers in their 4 wins. In their last game against Duke, those 4 guys that led them in scoring in the 4 different games went for 85 points. R.J. Davis, Love, Manick, and Bacot went for 85 points. So Carolina, yeah, could they get in foul trouble? The best way to beat Carolina is to go right at Bacot. Get him in foul trouble. He's a double-double machine, but they have no backup for him. There's no one that can replace him. It kind of absolutely makes their matchups across the board different.
Coach, knowing that, obviously this is a huge matchup, specifically for Duke, as I said at the beginning of this. Who do you think comes out of this one?
I'm picking North Carolina. I'm picking North Carolina because of the way they're defending. I'm picking North Carolina because of their versatility offensively. I'm picking North Carolina because I think R.J. Davis wins that matchup with Roach, which is going to be a fun matchup to watch. And I'm picking Carolina because all the pressure is on this Duke team. 90 former players in the stands the last time they played. Those 90 guys are going to be back at it. The pressure of having to take Coach K into that championship game, I think that becomes immense. It hasn't been a factor in the NCAA tournament, but all of a sudden it's Duke and Carolina. And
Coach,
they
that's
both
not
make
pressure.
each other better, but this game's going to be a little different because it could be Coach K's last.
Coach, that's not pressure. That's motivation, and we know motivation is a driving force. As a coach, you guys would try to find anything to motivate us.
Yeah, to create a cause. You want to create a cause. That cause could also suffocate you.
Okay, to that point, what's so fascinating to me about this matchup is the fact that we've never seen it before, obviously. But you know what else we've never seen? A team playing a national championship in the regular season and have an opportunity to redeem themselves in that very season. That matchup in Cameron was a national championship for Duke. Duke fell flat. How they've responded has been nothing short of admirable. Yes, they didn't win the ACC championship. They lost to the Hokies. But it was 31 points from Hunter Couture and a ridiculous effort from that group. Duke's looked the best of any team in this NCAA tournament. You could maybe say North Carolina's right there with them. So what that game provided in Cameron 3-4 weeks ago was motivation for both teams. Not pressure, but who has more motivation now? Who was the team that fell flat in that national championship game? Usually, Coach, you have to wait an entire offseason for guys to get back there.
You're going with the old revenge game motto? I mean, come on. That Notre Dame degree's got to be a little bit better
Every
than that.
Every game is pressure when you have a Duke uniform on. Every game is pressure when you have a UNC uniform on. There is no difference in terms of pressure here. It's about matchups, and it's about Mark Williams growing into the player I think he has become in these last 3 weeks, more so than he'd been during the season, and he had been special. He's dominant now.
Better guard
Bacot's
those ball
dominant now,
screens.
too.
They're
It's going to be
to the basket. He better guard those ball screens. Because
You gotta
I'll tell
guard
you
those
what,
ball
those ball screens, if you go back and look at the tape, they're going to have to change their ball screen defense. Like in the NCAA tournament, I give Duke credit because in the NCAA tournament, they've been down in all their ball screens or weak in all their ball screens. And they've been better at helping on the ball handler and getting back into play. The thing that changes is Manic spaces the court so far out, whether he's in the trail spot off the back screen or deep in the corner. It's really difficult. Their help's got to come from Leaky Black's guy. But then Leaky Black becomes a slasher and a cutter. Look, it's going to be a great game. Someone's got to win. I think there's greater pressure, and I understand the revenge factor. Coach K is all about digging into creating causes. I think North Carolina right now is playing with house money, a free mind, and an understanding